Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Untitled Chapter Business Hour. One of the things that we're doing, of course, this month is celebrating Women's International Month. And on this show, for the third consecutive year, we are focusing on women throughout the entire month. We've had some star-studded guests so far and much, much more to go. Today, for example, we're bringing on Monica Chiarini Tremblay. She is the chair and associate professor of Decision Sciences and Information Systems Department, College of Business at FIU. And we're going to be talking to her in a moment, a little bit later on, as we do every Thursday. Our business growth specialist, Sally Villalba, with Sally's Biz Tips. She's going to continue her series on the assembly instructions to grow your business. And towards the end of the program, we have a couple of announcements on some events that are happening and a little bit about tomorrow's show, which is going to be, I think, very, very dynamic, and the types of things and the topics that we're going to get into tomorrow. But without further ado, it is my pleasure to bring on to the program Monica Chiarini Tremblay. Good morning, Monica.
Good morning, Pete. How are you?
I'm doing terrific, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with us here. And, you know, we've had you on. It's been a while, but it's so good to bring you back to the program. And for the benefit of the listeners, let me share a little bit of information on Monica. Again, she is the chair and associate professor of Decision Sciences and Information Systems Department at the College of Business at Florida International University. Dr. Tremblay's research has focused on data science, particularly in the healthcare context. Dr. Tremblay teaches courses in data warehousing, data analytics, and health IT. Dr. Tremblay is frequently invited as an expert panelist in the area of data analytics and health informatics for international industry and academic conferences. Dr. Tremblay serves as an advisor on several committees, and she also holds dual Italian-U.S. nationalities and was raised in Mexico, Venezuela, Brazil, and the Dominican Republic. Quite a background, Monica.
Thank you. Good morning.
Let's go into a topic here that is continues to be a reality and a challenge for thousands and possibly millions of women around the country, and it's something that is looked at and it's talked about, but it's important that we address it because fairness across the board is something we're all looking for, and we're going to look at something that's still out there. It is improving, but it's still out there. It's the gender wage gap. Why is that going on still?
It's actually going on, but it's a deeper story than just a quick soundbite. So if you look at the male wages in the aggregate, compared to female wages, the gap is astounding. But if you dig a little deeper into the data, the story is more nuanced. The wage gap isn't as significant as what the Bureau of Labor Statistics data claims when you control for factors such as education, type of work, etc.
So the story is expand on that a little bit more, because it's something that before we can move on and talk about a topic, the background is just so critical.
So what is really happening is that men dominate the high-paying jobs. So women tend to opt, and I'm not stereotyping, but for a large extent, women tend to opt for lower-paying jobs that give back and that allow more flexibility. So, for example, teacher, nurse. But those jobs have small monetary benefits, except for some very specialized nurses. But this, again, doesn't tell the whole story, because we still see some gaps where women without children tend to make less money than their male counterparts. The Anita Borg Institute recently quoted Dr. Tilly Whitney saying, life is still far from easy for women in large companies. They're twice as likely to drop out as men in the middle of their career. They get fed up of having to constantly prove that they're competent and then don't see their workplaces as true meritocracies.
So it isn't necessarily women with children.
No. But it's actually closely related to to their education level, to their type of work that they do.
Is the issue really the gender wage gap, or is it something more?
So, to a small extent, yes, there's a gender wage gap, but to a larger extent, it's a jobs gap. So what's happening is that people are filling positions according to gender. So higher paid positions are being filled more by men, and lower paid positions are being filled more by women. So if you look at women working various non-managerial jobs, they earn 98% to the dollar on average. So that's not a gap. But once workers become executives, that share shrinks to about 91%, according to a recent pay scale study. So the findings kind of add a dimension to previous analyses from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which estimate instead that women earn as little as 77 to 80% of what men make overall.
Now, why do these jobs in high-paying industries feature such unequal pay?
In part, it's for the same reasons that some women opt out of top-earning occupations. So, namely, women are still doing a bulk of the unpaid labor at home. So, regardless of their job outside the home, they're less available to work overtime, to pass off sick kids, to the care of their spouse. So the bottom line is until men and women put equal time at home, it's unlikely that they'll put equal time at the office, so they tend to climb up the ladder slower.
Is it there's I think a misconception in the marketplace that women don't negotiate, or they don't really want to negotiate. Is that true?
So there's several books actually written about that, and the data says otherwise. Women are asserting themselves for raises and promotions at a rate similar to men. So a recent salary information site found that 32% of women and 29% of men have asked for a raise during their career, and 19% of women and 24% have asked for both a raise and a promotion. Now, for both men and women, the likelihood of asking for a raise or a promotion increases with their job level. So if you see less women at the higher levels, less of them are asking for a promotion.
So at this point, the things that we've been talking about so far, how was it 10, 15 years ago compared to what it is today? Even though there's still seems to be these challenges, has it improved through the years?
I'm going to speak from experience. I spent 15 years in industry before I came into academia, and I think it has improved. And in some careers, it never was a problem. So I think women have become smarter about how they manage their careers and their relationships, and that's a big part of it. It was hard for women at the beginning to find mentors, to kind of help them navigate the space. And now women are seeking out mentors that can help them do that. And most important, women are now realizing that they can't limit themselves to women mentors. They need to seek men in those higher positions as mentors. And they need to build alliances both internally with the men that are higher up in their organization and also externally in their field.
Is that happening? Is that starting to change?
Yes, absolutely, especially with the younger generations who are more accustomed.
Right. So there is movement, but still it's not where it should and needs to be, correct?
Correct.
Now, what is a possible solution to close the wage gap especially at executive levels?
So this is completely my opinion, but I think that if we had transparent pay, so you should be able to ask your boss, or your supervisor without question what people in your department with similar positions are making. So if you have access to those salaries, you would force management to justify your salary and somebody else's salary who's making more than you. So this would give women every tool to negotiate for their salary, not because women are weaker or lesser, but to help them figure out what the level playing field is.
I'm just thinking, are there certain parts of, let's say, the U.S., certain regions, whether it's the Southeast, the Northeast, Midwest, that still are, have a wider gap with these types of jobs and levels?
Again, it's very nuanced. It depends by industry. It depends by, you seem to see more women in government jobs. I know that in Silicon Valley they have a serious problem, and it mainly is because the people in charge are all men. Mm-hmm. And we have to change that. Once you start getting women in those positions, it should level the playing field.
How about South Florida?
South Florida is a really interesting place, right?
We like to think so, right?
Yes, we're a big melting pot. We have to deal with lots of cultures and lots of perceptions, but I think that's also an advantage for us because we're more straightforward, right? I think women down here are probably stronger in negotiating because they're more likely to speak out.
And why is that?
I don't know. They've dealt with Latin cultures. They've just the Latin culture in general tends to be more outspoken, and the ability to have the view of lots of cultures makes you more open-minded, both men and women.
Well, I'm from a Hispanic family, and many of our listeners, and Miami and South Florida, the Hispanic culture in general. There seems to be from the guy side of all of this, they have a certain mentality, and is it you said they're more open, but yet what I encounter a lot, or I hear, is that a Hispanic business owner, male Hispanic business owner, still has the tendency to kind of think back in the old ways. Have you run into that or heard about that?
To a certain extent, but then that male Hispanic business owner becomes a dad, right? And he has a daughter.
And everything changes.
Exactly. So, as they wish for better things for their daughter, I think it makes them think about the opportunities that they're giving women.
We have with us this morning now, representing Florida International University's College of Business, Monica Chiarini Tremblay. She has a long title, very important. She is one of the heads of the movement for decision sciences and information systems, which is a department of the College of Business. And Monica is very connected with what's going on, especially in the women's business market and the climate. And today we've been talking about the wage gap, the gender wage gap, and Monica, we've been talking about the things that are still happening out there and the fact that they have improved, but there's still a ways to go. Should the government do any sort of intervention or create some legislation regarding this?
So specifically, I'm not a policy person, but I would say that would be asking the government to legislate would feel like a slippery slope, because how do you define equal work? The gender gap isn't the only gap out there.
Right.
So I think what I mentioned before, transparent pay, would go much further. Because I think it's fair to say that women that negotiate their salaries are being told that they're difficult, where men are being told that they're smart. So it would be easy to argue if you knew what comparable salaries are.
That is so true. We were Sally and I were talking before we started the program today, and that is the case. It really is, and it's a shame that's a reality. Because again, everyone. I mean, if you've got the background, you've got the the skill sets, the education, why not? Why not be paid as a male, in the same role, everything exactly being the same, and that is something that again, it's hard to legislate that, but it's something that needs to continue to be looked at, and it's true. It really is true. For a guy, you're smart, you're negotiating, you're stepping, you're watching your back and all that, and when a woman does it, it's like they're being difficult.
Right.
And it's something that I think that we need to open up our eyes and realize and admit that it's out there, and find the ways to continue to improve that situation. Now, are there jobs that buck this trend and have a path to equal earning power?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Though we're focusing on the debate on the gender wage gap, we should examine why women are absent from these high-paying jobs and industries. One of these industries is technology, engineering, and all the executive positions. So if you look at technology, the gender pay gap has almost disappeared. So men still make a little bit more than women, so an average $95,000 versus $87,000 for women. Mm-hmm. But if you control for education, level of experience, parallel job titles, men and women are earning the same amount. So if you look at something like technology is a skills-driven marketplace. So you have to have the skills. And there's such high demand that they're not going to care. They really just need the people.
And you need the quality people, and
right.
To make sure that the bottom line is they understand what their responsibilities are with a job description, and they can follow through and implement. And the bottom line is the bottom line, and that's what's the most important part here. Why are so many women in tech, have less education, less experience than their male counterparts in IT?
So the problem is that women aren't pursuing these advanced technology degrees at the same rate as men. And part of that reason is that men dominate these programs, even at the educational level. And women don't feel comfortable appearing too smart or too aggressive. More striking is the lack of women in IT management jobs. So what we really need to do is we need to mentor these young girls to pursue these careers and get them more role models, teaching them in these areas. But it's really difficult to do this. They go to the classroom, they don't see anybody like them in these positions. At FIU, we've started IT Women Next Gen, and just recently they were out in high schools, and we brought our undergraduate MIS majors to talk about careers in technology to young high school girls. And we may have to reach as low a level as elementary school to talk these girls into pursuing this career. And I tell you, I have a 16-year-old that I'm trying to convince to do 2 weeks of camp coding, programming, and it's hard to sell her, and this is all I do. So
Correct.
It's really difficult to change the perception of these young girls at an early age.
You mentioned something, a word that's so important, mentoring.
Yeah.
Mentoring is it's such a critical aspect of one's career, business, male or female, and regardless of where you're at, whether you're just starting right out of college or you've been in a career 10, 15, 20 years or further down the road. The first part is to be mentored. Obviously, the younger you are, the more there's a tendency to be mentored by someone a little bit older, with a little bit more experience. But regardless, even if you've been out there for several years, you always have a mentor, even if though that mentor is in the same age bracket and all that. But they're sharing some ideas with you. But it's also the reverse, is that eventually is to turn around and instead of the mentee be the mentor. Are you seeing from your perspective in the women's market, the women's business world, that mentoring is expanding?
Yeah, I believe so, because I'm seeing women in these careers coalesce and understanding that mentoring is necessary to bring more women into the workforce. So like I said, our for example, IT Women Next Gen out of FIU that goes into high school is starting the early steps of this by mentoring very young girls with girls that are just a few years older than them, somebody that they can relate to. They're not going to relate to me, I'm much older than them, but they will relate to somebody who's just a couple of years older than them. And this goes out through the workforce. I know personally I've had many mentors that were both male and female, but the female ones in particularly, I think, understand the struggles, and they specifically look at ways that you can balance all these things that are thrown at you. I've had mentors completely, not even in Florida, right, but that are in similar positions that I work with. I've had mentors all, within the university. And then, most importantly, also, you should seek out male mentors because those people might be well-connected. So, in a mentor, you also want well-connected people because those are the people that put the plugs in for you, that, help you get into certain positions. I know that as a female professor, I'm constantly mentoring, both young men and women, but I focus on those women and telling them, go for those positions. Don't be too shy. Don't think you're good enough, that you're not good enough, which happens to quite a bit to women. They don't think that they are qualified for a position where a guy will go in and apply and say, no, I'm awesome. I know all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When they really don't. And they're just saying, I'll learn it when I get there. I'm not worried. Women don't tend to think that way. So even, within our department, fortunately, we have quite a few women professors in IT, which is nice. We make a strong commitment to get more women into this field and to mentor them through this process, even after they graduate.
Monica, this has been fascinating information, and I think very important for women professionals out there and across the board, but especially in IT, which is what my takeaway here today, which is all the opportunities are there. It's just a matter of moving forward and getting more involved in it. what is the best way for the listeners to connect with you with any questions or feedback?
So my email address is very simple. It's tremblay@fiu.edu. And my department, besides a bachelor's degrees in information systems, has 2 master's programs that may be of interest to your listeners. We have a master's in information systems, and then we also have a master's in health informatics, which is an area that is really hot right now. There's a lot of hiring. And in my master's of health informatics, I actually see quite a few women because many of my students are nurses wanting a career change, and they're very well suited for this job because they understand the clinical side. So they're coming over, learning project management, IT requirements analysis, analytics, and then going back in the job market with double pay.
They're reinventing themselves, which is beautiful. Yes. Monica, thank you so much, and really appreciate it, and hope to get you back on the show soon.
Okay, Pete. It was great talking to you.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.